Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
To Entanglement Radio, right, with Angela Levesque, right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. I'm coming to you live today from the beautiful foothills of the Rocky Mountains here in Boise, Idaho. We are continuing our shamanic journey this week with Kim T Montanus as we explore the inner spaces of the heart. If you didn't catch last week's show with Dr. Carl Greer, we talked about changing your story and changing your life. And we're going to talk a little bit more about visioning today and that experience and where the wisdom's coming from. I think it will be a great follow-up to last week's show. Next week, we have Neville Hodgkinson on, and we're going to be talking about the wisdom that we can learn from dying. So we're going to be talking about the living and the dying, and that should be a very interesting show. If you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can contact me at angela@hessiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter. At Hestia Health. I'm still continuing my my contest here. If you are on Twitter and you send out a tweet at #EntanglementRadio, I'll be putting all of those names into a hat. And the first show of every month, I will be announcing the winner, and you will receive a free intuitive reading from me, which is awesome. So I encourage you, all you need to do is send out a tweet with #EntanglementRadio. We have some really good guests coming up in the next few months. Dr. Eric Pearl is going to be on. We're going to be talking about the superhero scenario at the end of the month with James Conner. We've got all sorts of great stuff coming up here. Yes. So today, like I mentioned, we are going to continue our conversation in the thread of shamanism. And it's funny because this, as I said last week, is something that has been showing up in my space a lot. I've had a lot of authors and guests and just people in my space talking about shamanism. And so I think it's interesting because I always see these waves. I don't want to quite call them trends, but I guess these waves of topics and perspectives that come in. And so this has been the latest wave, and I think it's quite exciting. I think it's a great topic of conversation. You know, we are going to talk about visioning today and what that is and where that wisdom comes from. And one of my favorite, one of the biggest benefits, I think, from my meditation practice is what the insight that comes from it and the information that can be gleaned. You know, we face all these challenges in our life, and sometimes I've just had stuff pop up into my consciousness, like my radio show, for example, that I wasn't expecting. One time I was just in meditation and I hear this voice saying, "You're going to have a radio show, but not yet." And then about 6 weeks later in meditation, it comes up again saying, "It's time to start your radio show." And it's been an interesting past few, like almost 4 years now with radio. And it's been such a huge blessing in my life. And I've created great friendships and had so many opportunities for learning and growth and discovery just from connecting with my guests and reading their books and doing their workshops or whatever it is they are offering. And it's so great too to be able to speak to people weekly about things that they love. So let's see. Let me introduce my guest. Kim T Montanus has been a seeker for nearly 60 years. Her spiritual life has been guided by visions starting at age 4. At age 24, she had a spiritual awakening. This most exalted experience has been the guiding light of her spiritual life and has given Kim the foundation of a most fruitful meditation practice for 39 years. In 2004, she began Inner Journeys, a shamanic inquiry practice that taps into the compassion and wisdom that beings in the spiritual realms offer to all of us with profound love. She's a mother of 3 and lives in the Boston area. So with that, I feel very honored and blessed to welcome Kim Montanus to the program. Hello, Kim. How are you doing?
Hi, Angela. Hi, I'm great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, like I said, it's an interesting thing. I do get, as people contact me, I do see waves of similar topics, and shamanism has been right there. Do you see that in your life, that it's becoming more popular or more widely known? Of course, it's been around for a very long time, but more, I think, at the level of popular consciousness.
Yes, I have noticed that. I have friends who are practicing this alongside me as well, and I think it's very thrilling. I do believe that all of us have the capacity to tune in this way and glean wisdom. It's a matter of finding a teacher and practicing. I think that we do all have this capability. So the fact that more and more people are doing it does not surprise me.
So I asked Dr. Greer this question last week, but if people didn't hear what his answer was, and also I'd like your perspective, when we are talking on a most basic level and we talk about shamanism, or in your bio, shamanic inquiry practice, what exactly, or what does that mean?
Well, let's see. I guess the best way to say it is, what is inner journeys? What is the practice that I do? And I say that it's a technique to access the inner wisdom of the heart. It's a technique to access a focal point of spiritual connectedness. And it's a technique to access the realms of the spirit world. My teacher, Hank Wesselman, describes shamanism as the technology of the sacred. And I love that, what that is, the way he puts it. It really puts it in perspective, that it's a way to access the most holy, conscious energy that humans are capable of accessing. And these practices come from the ancient indigenous traditions all over the world. It's interesting that, there are common practices found in indigenous peoples all over the world. It's not just one culture or one area or one people who do this practice. It really is universal. So there is something here, not only from ancient times, but in present times, that people can be doing in order to gain access to more than what we see in front of us right in this moment.
Well, one thing that I've heard you mention already a few times is you've mentioned a few teachers, and I want to ask first a little bit about your teachers personally, and then ask in general. Do you feel that part of our spiritual work requires that we work with a teacher?
Yes, I very, very much do. In the same way, if you want to learn the piano, you can sit down and teach yourself, and some very rare individuals can just sit down and really pick it up so quickly. But most of us need a teacher for basically any skill that we'd like to accomplish. And I think that meditation and shamanic journeying fit in that bill also. There's a skill to it, and to have a guide, someone who can show us the way, I think is very important. In my case, I met my guru, my spiritual teacher, when I was quite young. I was 24 years old. I had been a seeker really since I had been a young child. So, looking for God was a part of my path from very early on. And I was looking for a teacher. And when I finally met him, Swami Muktananda, I met when I was 24 years old in upstate New York. And my initial meeting with him was a very beautiful meeting. I had a wonderful meditation experience, but it wasn't clear to me that he was my guru. I had this kind of romantic vision that, when I saw my guru, I would fall in love. I know he or she was the one, and then that would be the beginning. But with me, that was not the case. I had a great experience during the weekend that I spent in the ashram upstate New York, But I came home thinking, oh, that was interesting, and I'll continue searching. Well, what happened to me a few weeks later was so profound and meaningful that it was clear to me that I had met my guru, my teacher. What happened was that I was at home. Nothing extraordinary had happened. I was lying in bed trying to go to sleep one night, and I experienced this very intense energy just surging through my body. And I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't scary. It was very interesting, actually. And the energy increased and got stronger and stronger. And then at a certain point, it was so strong that I actually was physically catapulted out of my body, not physically, but spiritually catapulted out of my body. And when I kind of got my bearings after that rush of energy, this is a hard thing to describe because it was a transcendent experience. I awakened to be every atom in the universe. I was every atom, everywhere, for all time, eternally. And it was a transcendent experience. It's beyond words, but it was remarkable. There was infinite love, infinite joy, infinite bliss, infinite truth, infinite wisdom, infinite time. And I was in that state, I don't know, it felt like an eternity, but when I came back to my normal waking conscious state, I was back in my bed, I was breathless, and when I opened my eyes, there before me, hovering right before my face, was the image of Muktananda, and he was laughing, and just laughing and laughing, and all I could say at that point was, okay, you are the one who is going to take me there again. And I became his student, his follower, and it's been an amazing path ever since then. So that's my story of awakening, and to be blessed with such an amazing experience was.
Well, we're gonna have to pick that up after the break.
With the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. My guest again today is Kim T Montanus, and we are talking about shamanism, inner journeys of the heart, all of the work that she does. and her shamanic inquiry practice, and learning a little bit more about visioning and shamanic work. Before the break, you were sharing this amazing story that happened when you were about 24, and you had this complete dissolution of time and identity and physicality and all of that. So you see the vision of your guru, and what happens after that? How do you have that experience, and then how did that change your day-to-day life?
Well, it had a profound effect on me. I was married at the time, and one of the great pieces of good fortune for me was that my husband also had a great experience. And so we began to follow the same path together. We meditated regularly together. There was an ashram, a residential ashram in Boston at that time, and not long after that experience, we both moved into the ashram so that we could pursue our practices really at a dedicated, committed level. And so we lived in the ashram in Boston for 5 years, which was truly extraordinary. And during that time, Muktananda came to visit twice. It was there for a total of about 6 weeks altogether, and that was an astonishing experience in itself. So because that experience had been so profound, and because it meant so much to me, I dedicated my life to it. In fact, my life is still dedicated to it, although I'm not living in the ashram right now. But my meditation practice, my spiritual practice, is really the most important part of my life. So that experience that I had, I call it my North Star. I'm always aiming to go back into that state. I know that's the state that my guru lives in, and that's the state that I want to get to, and I think ultimately we are all going to get there. It's just a matter of finding the path and walking it. So it's been an amazing experience in my life to be in Siddha Yoga, and I love talking about it. It's one of the joys of my life to share my experiences.
Well, that sounds like a pretty amazing experience. One thing that you talk on your website, you have the light of the heart illuminates the path to personal fulfillment and joy. And it's interesting because you use the word visioning. And, when you think of the word visioning, you kind of think of it as a mental perception. So how is it that we connect to the heart in order to have this visioning experience?
Okay. So, really, I to make it easy for myself to understand, and hopefully for other people to understand, I say that I have two different practices. One is my meditation practice, which involves a mantra and the breath, and it's an access into my own inner being and state of joy and wonder and exaltation and worship. And my other practice is a practice I call inner journeys, which is a visioning. It's a purposeful visioning process that accesses the inner realms in a slightly different way and with different results. And so the inner journeys practice is what offers to me practical wisdom, practical advice for my own life, and I also offer it to other people as well. I offer to either go in and find wisdom for people who come to me, or I teach them how to journey themselves. It's a very simple, very accessible process. And together we can journey to get answers to questions that come up. The questions that people want to gain insight about in their lives. And I found this true for myself for sure when I've reached a turning point in my life, when I need to make a big decision, or if I'm having a difficult time in a relationship, or just, finding a way to be more happy in my life. The inner journey, this visioning process, is a very practical and really fruitful way to get answers to those kinds of questions.
So in what instance would somebody ask you to do the visioning for them? Why would they not choose to do that themselves?
I'm sorry, would you say that? Ask me again. I did not hear you.
Well, I was just wondering, why would somebody choose to have you do the visioning for them instead of them doing the visioning with you for themselves?
It's a matter of preference. Some people don't feel they would have the skill. Some people just would prefer not to. I love teaching it, and I love doing it together with people, but there are people who choose not to, and that's fine too. I think one of the things that works, though, is that if I would go in to ask a question for a person, the wisdom that comes up is quite personalized for their situation. It comes up in a way that makes it very accessible to them, and it has, just a proven track record of being helpful. I guess that's what I could share with you. One of the things that I do, Angela, is that when I journey, either if I'm journeying alone or with someone, is when at the end of the journey, I write about what I saw. The images that come up are, for me personally, not for everyone, but for me personally, are quite visual. It's like being in a dream, and all the visual aspects are quite symbolic. And I find that when I write about what I've seen, the wisdom of the symbolism is revealed. So, usually my write-up from a journey is a couple of pages long, and there's a lot to think about, a lot to talk about, and a lot to consider. And a lot of doors are opened into new opportunities and new ways to look at a situation that a person might be in and finding new ways to deal with it. So it's very rich. That's what I would say. It's a very rich experience, and there are many, many, many pieces to the journey itself. So I think one of the reasons why people ask me to journey for them is because I've just had the experience. I've been doing it for a long time. It's a skill that I've developed, and the writing part of it is what people find to be very helpful. They have something to hold on to, something to study and look at, and it goes beyond just having a chat after a nice experience in the inner realm. There's a solid piece there of learning that can come out of it.
Is there an example of this writing you can share?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Let's see. I have, this is an interesting one. This is about a healing. Now, the work that I do is not necessarily about physical healing. The work that I do can be, about emotional healing. It can be about, healing the mind, helping the mind to settle. But this particular journey was about physical healing. And this woman had contacted me because she was having very serious problems with her vision and with the cells in her brain acting in a way that was causing her deep pain, and she was not getting the results from medical testing that she wanted. So this is my write-up. This was from last fall. So we always go into a journey with an intention. I will speak with the person and find out what it is that they are looking for, and we come up with a question or an intention that's very clear. So the intention for this journey was to receive information about the healing of the damage in your brain and in your eyes. A group of healers joined me. I felt their compassion and love as we gathered in front of you. Crossed lines appeared over your face. The horizontal line was right beneath your eyes. The vertical line ran straight down the middle of your face. Your head opened on the horizontal plane at the level beneath your eyes. The flat surface that was revealed was smooth and had the appearance of being covered by a slick of oil. And I wrote to her, I said, do not take this image literally or in a negative way. This image is the best way to reveal to you the nature of what is happening in your brain cells at this level of inquiry. The image of a large rudimentary snowflake appeared, standing vertically, touching the surface. A few more simple snowflakes appeared, standing upright in the same way. Each form was coarse, solid, shiny, its surface the texture of plastic, its color an opaque white. A few more snowflakes appeared. The oil from the surface on which they were standing started to wick up onto the forms. I heard the message that you should not do any inverted postures. Doing so would be detrimental to the cells in your brain. I started to feel energy pouring into me. It was cold, electric, and quite intense. As this energy flowed, I could see a transformation taking place. The snowflakes were now becoming small, delicate crystals. The crystals were clear and translucent. They reflected a beautiful light, a light more pure than that which we perceive with our physical eyes. Each crystal form had a myriad of facets, and each surface was actively branching, multiplying in dizzying geometry. The field of crystals grew until they covered the entire surface of your sectioned brain. I could hear them gently tinkling as they multiplied and interconnected. The crystals seemed cold to me like snowflakes, but I was told that perceiving these forms as snowflakes was my own projection. They are, and are to be perceived as the light of grace in crystalline form. Their light, their beauty was a wonder.
Well, I'm gonna have to stop you there because we are up on our break, but I want to talk about that. There's a lot of symbolism. So we are talking with Kim T Montanus, and we'll return here on Entanglement Radio right after this break.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Simone Milicis would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. My guest today, if you're just joining us, is Kim Montanus, and we are talking about her work, Inner Journeys. So before the break, you were sharing with us the write-up that you experienced from the journey, and as I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, wow, the snowflakes and the crystalline structures, and the only thing that was kind of literal in that whole thing was about don't do the inverted postures. So when people hear that kind of thing, how do you then take that information and make it applicable to what their initial intention was?
Well, this, as I mentioned at the beginning, this was a unique journey for me. I do not usually engage in the physical aspect of healing. But I'd like to share this journey because the visuals were so beautiful. So for this person, what happened, there was more to the journey, but what I wrote about was that really this transformation that was happening was really divine grace that was happening. This woman was very attuned spiritually, and seeing these crystalline structures forming was really a vision of divine grace being, part of her healing process, being the healing process, and that she needed to be patient and to continue to move forward with faith that the healing would happen. And the interesting part, as the journey went on, I got the message that there was another practice that she could do. And the practice was about pouring a glass of water and putting it in the light, in the sunlight, letting it sit in the sunlight for several hours, and then drinking it. And the message that came through was that this practice, she did not need to do it because the healing was already taking place, but because her mind and her call to action was to do something. This was a compassionate thing for her to do, to feel that she was being active in her own healing process. So
I wanted to ask you quick, is the journey in itself healing? Does that do some healing on a deep level? Not necessarily even, like you said, healing can be physical, emotional, mental, right. But does the visioning in itself have a healing aspect to it?
Yes, absolutely. For me, when I journey and receive the energy that is coming through, that energy is very healing in itself. And the images and the wisdom that comes through at such a deep level that I feel that my being is shifting on an energetic level that it wouldn't necessarily if I were just, hearing these words from a friend who was talking to me. And part of what I put a lot of care into the writing process because I feel that energy can come through when I'm writing for another person, that the healing energy comes through with those words. Obviously, we don't see the same thing when we're journeying side by side. They're having their experience and I'm having mine. But I want to convey that energy to them after the journey with the writing, which I feel does contain some of that energy in itself. Yes.
So when you have such, symbolic and metaphorical things that come out of it, who does do you work with the client and help them understand what that means, or do you already have an idea of how that gets translated?
Well, it's interesting. We do talk quite a bit. So the process is that, when I'm working with a client, they'll call me or come to me and we'll talk and we'll come down to find, what it is they would like to find wisdom for. We come up with an intention. We set a date to journey, either together or not. And then after that, we speak once again. And this is a fascinating process because at that point, we can talk about what each of us has seen, talk about the symbolism, I will share my write-up. I do encourage clients to write up their journeys themselves also. But oftentimes the symbolism can be somewhat opaque to me. I do have a feeling for what it means, but it's always surprising to me, not always, but so many times it's surprising to me that the symbolism has its own special twist for the person that I'm with. It's not necessarily what I'm thinking at all, or it could be with a slightly different version for them that's meaningful and healing for them. So it's a very interesting thing. I also try to tell clients in the beginning that, this is very personal work, and, there's a certain amount of exposure, and I want them to be clear that, there is privacy in this as well, in the way that the symbolism can be somewhat opaque to me when I'm journeying for them. When I'm journeying for myself, then obviously, I feel like I'm getting the full meaning of what I'm seeing, but I don't necessarily feel that when I'm journeying for another person.
That's really interesting. You had I was just wondering, we talked about trends or seeing waves of seeing more like shamanic, just shamanism in popular culture. I was wondering, in your work with clients, do you also see trends in what they're looking for? Like, is there a lot of people right now with intentions about their career or, relationships? Do you see trends in the type of clients and what they're seeking?
Actually, I would not see that particularly, because all kinds of different people come to me, but I do see trends in and this is my own bias, I guess, but I see trends in the wisdom that's coming up in many journeys, certainly not all of them, but there is a theme of fear that comes up, that, we are all being challenged in so many ways these days. The world is a scary place. There's a lot going on. And we are being, tested in a particular way to bring forth our courage and to lose fear, because fear is the thing that really keeps us away from love, from trust, from each other. And so that's the trend that I seem to find in the work that I do with people, whether it comes up really clearly in the symbolism or almost at a sub-level. But I think there's the trend is about fear.
And so can that ever come up as a frightening journey?
I have never had a frightening journey. I have been with people. I have been in a journeying group for many years, and one or two of our group members had recurring frightening experiences. But for the most part, the answer is no. It is not a frightening experience.
So I was wondering, even in your bio, you say taps into the compassion and wisdom that beings in a spiritual realm have to offer us. First of all, I want to ask you, where does this wisdom come from, and who are these beings you speak of?
Well, that is such an interesting question, because what I have discovered through this practice is that there are beings who live in the subtle realms, who do not have physical bodies, obviously, who are present and with us at all times and desire very deeply to be of assistance and aid to us in our lives. And what they need is for us to welcome them and to accept what they have to offer us. And it's a funny thing. It still kind of blows my mind that I can speak this way in public, because it's certainly not an accepted point of view. but I have seen angels. I have seen beings who are so profoundly beautiful that they make my hair stand on end even years after I saw them. I have seen other beings that have been so wise and have given such an extraordinary amount of compassion and love to their own, beloveds, that it brings tears to my eyes. That's all I can say. So, there is more to this world than we can see with our senses and feel with our beings. And the more sensitive we become, the more we can open up to these realms of spiritual beings.
Well, first of all, I got to say, you can't get too weird for me. So you're in good company. And also the listenership at the OMTimes Radio Network are very open to these kind of conversations. So nobody will think you're weird on this show. Because that's something, as when I started doing Reiki in 2005 and I started to understand the world see the world more from an energetic lens, then all of a sudden things like that started to open up, and I've seen angels and spoke to them, and sometimes relatives that have passed, all sorts of things that it seems like you need to open yourself up to them, and then as soon as you're willing and able to do that, then all of a sudden these things start to come into space. But we're actually almost up on our break here. When we get back, it's a little segment I like to call Bite-Sized Brilliance. And so I like to take what we've talked about and help people integrate it in their daily lives. And so I want to talk a little bit more about your meditation practice and, how meditating for as long as you have, how that has impacted your life. And if you have a few practices or techniques that my listeners can take away today and start and learn about, we will talk about that when we return here. You're listening to Entanglement Radio. If you need to get a hold of me, you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and on Entanglement Radio. And we are talking with Kim T Montanus here on the OMTimes Radio Network. We'll be right back after this break.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
If you've ever said, I do want it all. I do want happiness. I do want love. And I do desire the happily ever after fairy tale life. Then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, for my internationally acclaimed show, Bridal Talk Radio, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, where I'll bring you the top experts in the fields of communication, money, relationships, finance, pleasure, play, travel, sexuality, parenting, real estate, adventure, comfort, care, passion, and love.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
All right, we're back here on Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque, right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. This is the segment where we like to bring it on home. and it's called Bite-Sized Brilliance, and it's brought to you by HestiaHealth.com, where we specialize in mind-body weight loss, energy medicine, and intuitive lifestyle consulting. So you can find out more at HestiaHealth.com. So, Kim, like I said, the last segment, I like to leave my listeners with some practices or tools or techniques or just general idea about how we take this conversation, this high-level conversation that we've had today, and take some of this stuff and integrate it into their daily lives. Now, I know you had mentioned at the beginning of the show that you use a mantra-based meditation practice. Tell us a little bit about how that's worked for you, and do you think that that is really, for people, whether they've been meditating for a while or if they're just beginners, if you think that that's a good style of meditation?
Oh, absolutely. So the practice that I do, it's Siddha meditation. Siddha is spelled Siddha, and it's Siddha yoga. Siddha gurus, the word Siddha means perfected. And the technique that they use, that they teach, is very simple. And I say the best thing to do would be to go to the website. There are meditation practice instructions on the website, and it's siddhayoga.org, siddhayoga.org. And that will give you, you can go to the link that says Siddha Yoga Meditation, and there are really beautiful instructions, not only what to do with your physical body, but to how to hold your state of mind and your awareness and your attitude as you meditate. So far be it from me to give very simple, the traditional sit straight, breathe deeply, follow the breath. It's all incorporated in that. But there's such a beautiful and very detailed and well-articulated instructions on the website. I would recommend everyone go there and see that and try it, because Siddha Yoga, I would be a completely different person without my meditation practice. I think I have so much more equanimity, peace, love, and joy in my life than I've never envisioned I could grow in the way that I have through my practice. That's I guess the best way to say it. It's given me the world, and I am thrilled to have followed this path, and will be continuing to follow this path until forever. So I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. What is one of do you think that you could do the visioning work that you do at Inner Journeys without having such a deep meditative practice?
Oh, yes, I do. I think that anyone who would like to pursue the Inner Journeys, I can recommend a book that has a CD. It has very, very clear instructions. It's very simple. And for a lot of people, right from the get-go, have very profound experiences. So if this is the time I can share the book and everything about it, this is a good time to do it.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so the teacher that I've been studying with, his name is Hank Wesselman. It's Wesselman, and he's written several books. The book that I recommend to start with is called The Journey to the Sacred Garden. It's a guide to traveling in the spiritual realm. And as I said, it's a very short, easy, quick read. And it comes with a CD that has drumming music to it. And like many or most shamanic traditions, having a drum beat is an important part of getting your brain to be cycling at a certain rate so that you can go into what they call a theta state, which is a state that they find people in deep meditation, Zen masters, yoga practitioners, that's the state of deep meditation. So this drum helps jumpstart your brain to get into that cycle. And this book, again, very clear instructions. You lie down, you start the drumming CD, you ask for protection, you cover your eyes, you focus on your goal for the journey, you relax your body, you breathe deeply, do some clearing breaths, to release your tension. And then you go to a place called the inner garden. It can be a place that you've been to that you love, that you're familiar with, or it can be an imaginary place. But it's a place that evokes something deep inside your heart. And once you visualize yourself as clearly as you possibly can in that place, look around and see what you see. And that's the beginning of the journey. And it's fascinating, all the paths that lead from that garden to where you'll go. You never know.
I love that. Can you say his name one more time?
Sure. It's Hank Wesselman.
Hank.
Wesselman.
Have you ever considered writing a book?
You know, I would love to put the writings I've done together, because some of them are really just beautiful. I've gotten good feedback about it, but it's daunting to think of compiling them all and putting them together. But it's definitely something I think about quite a bit.
Yes, it seems like I can see a book in your future for sure.
Oh, thank you. I need all the encouragement I can get. Thank you.
So I had asked you before the break about the beings, and I also asked you, where does this wisdom come from? Do you think that this wisdom is purely coming from another dimension, or do you think this wisdom that within ourselves we have a certain level of higher knowing?
I think the answer is yes to both of those. You know, my meditation tradition, you know, one of the tenets is that there's nothing that's not consciousness. Everything is conscious energy. And it's our feeling separate from the oneness of conscious energy that brings us all kinds of troubles in this world. And so I think that we make distinctions about inner and outer and up and down that don't necessarily ring true when you have the grander expansive vision, which I think is the place we're all trying to get to. So, I think it's all there and all before us if we have the eyes to see it.
So as you look around, and I think this is one of my places where I get stuck. And when I look around in the world and I see so much stuff going on that doesn't understand that level of oneness, that doesn't have, you know, that we live on a small planet, and yet there's still so much war and strife and social injustice. And so how do you approach those types of things without getting very cynical or jaded?
Well, you know, I think every human being is walking on the spiritual path at their own rate. Some people go much more slowly than others, but we're all evolving, and we all have our karma, our things that we are working through and doing. And I think that it's important that we have compassion for each other, even the people who are doing things that are very dark, and to move forward. I think we have to keep our hearts open. I think we have to have compassion for each other, and we have to give all we can give from our loving hearts to those who perhaps need it. I think this is just a grand journey for us all, and it's how you hold the journey that manifests your life.
Well, that's a good place to leave. So we just have a couple more minutes here. I want to just give you the opportunity to share your website and how people can get a hold of you.
Great, thank you. So my website is KimTMontanus.com. I'll spell that for you. It's KimTMontanus.com. And that will explain, what we've been talking about here, probably, hopefully, in greater detail. So please check that out. If you'd like to contact me, that is my email address, KimTMontanus@gmail.com. So it's KimTMontanus@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, Kim T Montanus at Facebook, and if you'd like to check in and share, with me on Facebook, I would love that. I'd love to hear from everyone. It'd be great to meet you either online or in person and continue this conversation.
And can you do work with people remotely?
Absolutely. Yes, I work with people from all over the place. So just you can contact me through my website, and I will get back to you, and we can set up times to talk over the phone or Skype or FaceTime, whatever is the best method. But yes, we can work together remotely.
Well, Kim, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today. It was such a delight speaking with you today.
Thank you, Angela. It was delightful to be here as well.
Well, have a great rest of the day. So that, again, if you need to find her website, it's kimtmontanus.com. So coming up next week, we have Neville Hodgkinson, and we're going to be talking about the lessons we learn from the dying. I think it's a really important conversation. If you need to go to hold of me anytime during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find out more about what I have to offer at hestiahealth.com and find me on Facebook and on Twitter. Coming up next on the OMTimes Radio Network is Equilarium FM with Claire Johnston. And you can hear my show live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. So don't forget about my contest, my Twitter contest, #Entanglement Radio, and the winner will receive a free intuitive reading from me. So that is, this is Angela Lebec wishing you love and light. I will see you next week.
Your conscious connection